Patel, our FBI director, unfortunately, was a little bit freaked out during a congressional hearing when allegations about his drinking habits came up. He should have expected that to happen, but apparently he wasn't able to compose himself anyway. So he appeared before Congress to specifically discuss the upcoming budget for the FBI along with other law enforcement agencies. And so he was met with near universal praise from Republicans, with the New York Times reporting that Senator Katie Britt thanked him effusively for the Bureau's work in her home state of Alabama. Now, guys, let me just pause for a second. Kash Patel's a disaster, and no one has been able to persuade me otherwise. But putting him aside, the FBI is a giant agency that does all sorts of work. And some of that work, even under the Trump administration, has been good work, right? They've been finding and disbanding criminal enterprises and entities. And so when Britt says that about the FBI, it's not necessarily a lie. The FBI might have done something in the state of Alabama that actually did benefit the people of Alabama. So I just want you to be aware of that. Now, when it comes to Kash Patel, his conduct and his investigations, that's where we're starting to find some pretty big issues, right? So you have that big Atlantic piece about his alleged drinking problems, which he tried to sue over, but I believe that suit was dismissed. So when it came to the Democrats during this hearing, though, Patel's tone was decidedly hostile. I'm sure the questions were also hostile. Let's be fair here. Senator Chris Van Hollen of Maryland received the bulk of Kash Patel's ire while discussing Patel's alleged drinking problems. So let's take a look at that.
And so there have been no occasions when your security detail had difficulty waking or locating you, is that right?
Nope, it's a total farce. I don't even know where you get this stuff, but it doesn't make it credible because you say so.
I'm not saying it, Director Patel. It's been written and documented.
You are literally saying it.
No, I'm saying that these are reports, Director Patel.
No, unlike your baseless reports, the only person that was slinging margaritas in El Salvador on the taxpayer dollar with a convicted gangbanging rapist was you.
You know,
the only person that ran up a $7,000 bar tab in Washington, D.C. at the lobby bar was you. So the only individual in this room that has been drinking on taxpayer dime during the day
polygraphing
you.
Director Patel, come on.
Okay, so Senator Chris Van Hollen, if you're gonna bring the heat, you gotta be ready. Okay, you know he's gonna react that way. And I just think that so immediately he asks the question, Kash Patel goes on the offense. You know he's gonna do that, so you gotta bring your A game and dominate that situation. That did not look like domination to me. And by the way, asking the FBI director whether he has a drinking problem after a massive report about that came out is a perfectly legitimate question. In fact, it's a question he needs to answer calmly and honestly, because he's the literal FBI director who has bungled previous investigations, including, by the way he behaved in the aftermath of the Charlie Kirk assassination was a disaster. I don't know, were you drunk? Did you have 2 martinis at lunch? Like, what's going on here? Legitimate question. Patel should have expected it, and he should have had an answer ready for that question, but he didn't, which shows you how much of a clown he really is. So, by the way, the gang banging rapist thing that Patel is referring to is Kilmar Abrego Garcia. That name might ring a bell because we've talked about him on the show before. He was the immigrant that the Trump administration erroneously deported to a maximum security prison in El Salvador. In fact, the Trump administration's own lawyers admitted that they accidentally deported him. And then the administration tried to cover it up after the fact. So Garcia, a resident of Van Hollen's state, met with the senator while incarcerated, wrongfully incarcerated in a maximum security prison in an effort to reverse the deportation. That's why Van Hollen was there. So Van Hollen was doing the right thing. And our FBI director tried to make it seem like he was in a foreign country getting drunk with a bunch of gangbangers. Yeah, that's who Kash Patel is. Okay, so as the New York Times points out, Mr. Patel's accusation also mischaracterized, which I'm not surprised by, Abrego Garcia, who has never been convicted of a sex crime or of being part of a gang. He briefly had a restraining order against him. So the fiery exchange didn't end there. Patel erupted again when Van Hollen inquired about the use of polygraphs within the FBI to help determine who was responsible for leaking stories of Patel's behavior to the press. Take a look.
All right. I think that the fact that you're so, have you ordered polygraph tests of members of your team to determine how that story came about?
The FBI conducts polygraph tests all the time.
No, have you ordered polygraph tests for members of your team to determine who was the source of the stories that I'm asking you about?
I don't order any polygraph tests. There's an internal inspection review process for any and all leaks, especially of baseless information at the FBI, that's been in place for the last 30 years. Those processes are followed by career intelligence and agents on the ground.
So I'll take that as a yes, since you said that these were unauthorized disclosures.
Okay. The leaks are going to continue happening. How about you don't get drunk on the job? Okay, how about that? It's not that difficult. You don't have to deal with lawsuits. You don't have to threaten journalists. You don't have to make up lies about senators. Just, do what the normies do. Wait until Wednesday night when it's okay to have a beer after work. Okay, that's what normies like me do. And don't get sloshed in public anywhere. You're the FBI director. Take responsibility for your behavior and your conduct. It's that simple. People be losing their jobs out here over accurate criticism of a foreign country, and our literal FBI director is allegedly, but I believe it, getting drunk on the job. Getting drunk at a bar that all the politicians go to in DC, getting drunk at, what is it called? Poodle Dog Bar or whatever in Vegas. I'm making up that name, but I think it's similar to that. In public, like you're the FBI director, you're getting drunk in public. What are you doing? What are you doing? Take some responsibility for your actions, but no, he could never do that. So the hearing ended with, well, both parties essentially calling each other a disgrace.
Do you know, Mr. Director, that it is a crime to lie to Congress? Do you know that?
I do not lie to Congress.
I didn't ask you that.
And you're insinuating that I am.
I asked you whether you know.
You want to correct your time in this session where you got steamrolled by the facts so you can have a Twitter narrative so you can go raise more money and spend more money on $7,000 bar tabs.
Just let the record
I'm not going to give it to you.
The director of the FBI apparently does not want to answer the question about whether or not it's a crime to lie to Congress, and I find that extremely troubling.
I find it troubling that you lie to the American people every day.
You are a disgrace, Mr. Director.
Not nearly as big as you.
The fact that you can't answer that question, I will. That concludes my questioning, Mr. Chairman. But I'm obviously very troubled.
I know Congress is under the impression that they can skirt not ever doing their jobs and fixing very real problems in this country by simply doing endless hearings that are useless and lead to nothing. But make no mistake about it, these hearings are useless and they lead to nothing. Okay, it's for sound bites for these politicians. So I know I'm being a little harsh on Van Hollen. Van Hollen alone isn't the problem. The entirety of Congress is a problem. But honestly, Kash Patel's performance there reminded me a lot of what Pam Bondi did during her hearing before Congress, where she answered questions or actually avoided answering legitimate questions about the Epstein files and then went on to scream and shout about how well the Dow Jones Industrial Complex is doing. So, by the way, the bar that he likes to get drunk at in Vegas is called the Poodle Room. So I wasn't that far off. Kash Patel is a disgrace. But I think our whole political system right now can be summed up as a disgrace, just to be clear and honest about it.
Every time you ring the bell below, an angel gets his wings. Totally not true, but it does keep you updated on our live shows.